Hey everyone, it's Kelly here from Tutor Hustle for Teachers, and I'm coming to you with a quick video about policies today. And if you're watching this video, you probably already know that you need to have a policy for your tutoring business. Why? Why do you need to have a policy in place? Because a policy protects your time, it protects your money, and it lets your students and families know what to expect. So no matter how small or how big your business is, you need to have a policy. But how do you make a policy anyway? Like, how do you even start? When you're first starting out tutoring, it's kind of impossible to know. I had no idea. So I was not having a policy for a long time until I just got tired of being sometimes taken advantage of by my students and families. So I started to write one. And I basically started to write it based on the things that they were doing that I didn't like. Mostly no showing. No showing is the worst. And I started to write it based on that. And it has evolved quite a bit over time. And I want you to know that your policy is probably going to evolve over time as well. So there's some good news and bad news. The bad news is that you're never going to be done writing your policy. You're going to keep updating it. The good news is that your policy is like a super tool that you have in your toolkit because whenever something happens, like a negative situation happens between you and your student or you and your families, they no show, they don't pay, whatever it is that they do that bothers you, that you don't like, the policy actually empowers you around that because you can now add that to your policy and make sure it doesn't happen again. How cool is that? So you don't have to just sit back and, take this behavior that you don't like. You are empowered to change it by adding it and updating your policy and making sure it never happens again with that family or any other family. So a policy is really an empowering tool, and I'm so glad you're here to find out more about how to make one if you don't have one already. So I'm going to just give you a quick little framework to work from. If you're writing your first policy for the very first time and you have no clue where to start, I'm going to give you this quick little framework to work from. And I'm going to link my blog post below that has a little bit more in-depth information. And it also has a free policy checklist. So you can make sure that you've ticked all the boxes and got all the important things in place to start off your policy. So for your beginner policy, because remember, it's going to change over time. Things are going to happen, and I can't predict what those things are going to be, and neither can you. But when they do happen, you're going to add them to your policy, update your policy, share it with your families, and make sure those bad things never happen again. Because your policy is like your superpower tool like that. Okay, here's a framework of 3 things that you can work from to start to write your first policy. The first one is cancellations, and this includes the dreaded no shows and late cancellations. So, what you need to do is tell your families how long do they have to cancel. So, give them a window of time that you will accept as a cancellation. So, for me, it's 12 hours. It could be 24 hours, it could be 72 hours. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. But you have to give them a window of time that is acceptable for you for them to cancel, and you have to make them aware of that. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, what if they cancel late? What if they cancel within 6 hours notice or 2 hours notice and they don't cancel within the 12-hour window? Then that is considered a late cancellation. So we need to address what we're going to do about that. So when you give them your cancellation window, let's say it's 12 hours, you can tell them, if you cancel within 12 hours, I can offer you a makeup class, a refund, a credit, whatever you want to do to compensate them for canceling within the time that you are deeming acceptable, within your appropriate amount of time. How are you going to compensate them for that? You have to let them know. But then if they cancel late, they cancel in less than that amount of time, what are you going to do? You have to make sure that you tell them that they may not be eligible for the compensation they would get if they respected the 12 hours notice. You have to make sure that they are aware of that. Otherwise, they may be expecting the same compensation. So let them know that they may not be eligible for that makeup lesson or that refund or that credit. Make that very clear to them. If they cancel late, then they're not eligible for those things, or they may not be eligible for those things, however you want to approach it. Now, what if they no-show? Oh my gosh, this is the worst, the worst, the worst. So a no-show is when you are just basically stood up. So if you're tutoring online, you're sitting there on Zoom, waiting for them to come in the waiting room, waiting, waiting, waiting. They don't show up. You don't hear from them. They don't tell you what's going on. They just don't show. If you're tutoring in person, that's even worse because you had to probably physically go somewhere and you're sitting there waiting for them, waiting, 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 and they don't show up. And you don't hear from them. They just no-showed you. So I think that for me, I wanted to be really, really strict about that because that's not cool. That's not respecting my time. And before I had a policy, I had a family that regularly would no show on me, and then they would expect a makeup lesson. So, no, 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 no. We're not playing that game anymore. So we have to be strict about no-shows. And I clearly state in my policy what a no-show is. So I define it for them. And I tell them you have to pay for that lesson. This is my policy. Now you can decide what you want to do with this, but I let them know that lesson is still billable. You have to pay for it. There's no makeup lesson. There's no credit. There's no refund. No shows are unacceptable. I make that really, really clear in my policy because for me, they aren't acceptable. And there's going to be certain things for you that you just will not accept. So you have to make it very clear in your policy what those things are. For me, it's no shows. So address cancellations, address no shows, address late cancellations in your policy. That's the first thing. Okay, the second thing that you are going to address is payments because you want to get paid, right? And you want to get paid on time. You don't want to be chasing people down for money. That's also a real stinker, and you don't want that. So make sure you say in your policy, first of all, tell the parents how they can pay. You want to make this as easy for them as possible. So tell them very clearly how they can pay and tell them when payment is expected. Is it expected at each lesson, the first of the month, the end of the month? However you want to do it, make sure you clearly communicate to them when they are expected to pay, and then let them know what's going to happen if they don't pay or if there's a late payment. Are you going to charge a late payment fee? Are you going to end the tutoring service? Like, let them know what's going to happen if they don't pay because some people may not, right? We can't control that. So put that in your policy for sure. And the third thing that you want to include in your policy is behavior expectations. And I would also throw into this parental supervision as well. So for me, if I'm tutoring in person, especially, I want to make sure that students can meet certain behavior expectations because I want to make sure that it's going to be safe for them. I tutor little kids, and if I have a little kid that's a runner, that's like tends to run out onto the street when they get scared, I can't deal with that, right? That's beyond my capabilities and they won't be safe. So I make it very clear in my policy the things that I will tolerate, the behaviors that I expect for safety and for, a nice, enjoyable class, especially if it's a group class, because you want everyone to enjoy their time there. So I make it clear what behaviors are acceptable and what I'm expecting in terms of behavior from the students. And this is also true for online because you can address things like muting and unmuting and interrupting and, stuff like that. Online is really wonderful in this way because I tutor through Zoom, so whatever platform you use, you can control a lot of the behaviors yourself. I mean, you can mute kids, you can disable annotations so they're not writing on the board. You can control a lot of these behaviors yourself, but think about the ones that you maybe can't control and address those in your policy. And also include parental supervision in this as well. If you're tutoring little kids online, make it very clear to the parents that they have to stay on the premises and they're responsible for supervising their kids while you're tutoring them because you can't keep their kids safe through the computer, right? And, that's kind of common sense, but sometimes common sense is not that common. So you have to be very clear and like really explain everything in your policy, even if it seems so obvious and you're like, oh my gosh, how can I even write this? What are the people going to think? Don't worry about it. It's better to over communicate than to under communicate. So make it clear that parents have to stay on the premises to supervise. If the kids are little, if they're bigger, it might not be so much of an issue. And if you're tutoring in person, What do you want the parents to do? Do you want them to be on the premises supervising while you're there? If you're tutoring in the student's home, I think that would be a no-brainer. Like you definitely would want the parents to be there. But if you're tutoring at like, a place that you rent out, like a tutoring space that you rent out, are you going to require the parents to stay on the premises? You have to think about that. And whatever your expectation is, you must put it in your policy so that the parents know. So there's a little framework for you of 3 things to get you started on writing a great policy that is going to make tutoring much more enjoyable for you and is going to help you grow your business and is going to give you the power to overcome those inevitable, really negative, yucky situations that are going to come up. They don't come up often, okay? Because tutoring is really fun and wonderful, but it could happen. And this is going to give you the power to overcome them and make sure they don't happen again. So make sure you write a policy if you don't have one already. And if you need help, more help with writing your policy, please check out the link below to my blog where we'll go more in depth on this and to the free policy checklist to help you get started writing your policy. And if you have any questions or comments or something you think that people should add to their policies, then please put it in the comments below because I would love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so we can share these wonderful tutoring tips with tutors all over the world and spread the word of how joyful tutoring is and how it's wonderful as a teacher to have a tutoring side hustle or even just a tutor full time. We want to spread the word about how much we love it. So make sure you like and subscribe this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.